We're live.
Good afternoon. This is the Senate Education Committee on March 18th. We have, I think, 4 school board members from different parts of the state, both in person and online, to testify today. Give us input on the draft map, and I hope that everybody who is going to testify saw that the map changed slightly with yesterday. May not make a huge difference one way or the other, but map did change slightly yesterday. So we are starting with Jason Miller from the Caledonia Cooperative.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So I'm the
Jason, let me interrupt because I forgot to do something we should have done,
Yeah.
which is introduce the committee. So we have 2 members missing. One is Senator Ron Hinsdale from the Chittenden district. I forget which one, but Chittenden. Not Senator Hashim from the Windham district. And I know that Senator Ron Hinsdale is on her way. She'll be here in a minute. Not sure about Senator Hashim, but then next, Dave Weeks representing Rutland County.
Okay.
And I'm Seth Baumgartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District.
Terry Williams, also from Rutland District.
Steve Heffernan, Aspen County District.
Okay, so without further ado.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here in front of you today. So I'm the board chair for the Caledonia Cooperative School District, which comprises of Waterford, Walden, and Barnet as well. So I believe you have the testimony as a written form, but now I'm going to go through that testimony. So the title of this is Community Statement on Local School Preservation and Governance Structure. This is testimony from the Caledonia Cooperative School Board, representing the towns of Waterford, Barnet, and Walden in the Northeast Kingdom. Honorable members of the Senate Committee on Education, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to testify today. I speak on behalf of the Caledonia Cooperative School District and the many parents, caregivers, educators, and residents of Waterford, Barnet, and Walden, where we want to share our thoughts on the topic of supervisory unions in school districts. Our community is writing to express our position regarding the future governance structure of our elementary and middle schools. We are committed to local preservation and recognize the critical importance of this decision. However, we need more information before we can responsibly decide between a supervisory union or a school district model. We have identified several key differences between the 2 proposed structures. A school district would provide greater operational efficiencies at the central office and school board level. In contrast, a supervisory union would preserve enhanced local control across all participating communities. Additionally, we are particularly interested in the supervisory union's framework for voluntary mergers following formation, which would allow our community to retain smaller, locally governed school boards rather than consolidating into a single large district administration. Our community faces significant concerns that must be addressed before proceeding. The geography and the distance between our schools present challenges for shared services and coordination. Regardless of which model we adopt, most importantly, we need clarity on whether the foundation formula would apply equally to both supervisory union and school district structures, as this mechanism is essential to preserving our local control and decision-making authority. Before we can make an informed decision, we require answers to several critical questions. First, would the foundation formula apply to both governance models? Second, what would be the specific cost-saving differences between the supervisory and school district models? These financial and structural details are essential to evaluating which approach best serves our community's interests. Regardless of the chosen model, school choice has to be preserved. We believe that maintaining robust school choice options is fundamental to our community's educational philosophy. Families must retain the ability to select educational programs in schools that best meet their children's individual needs, learning styles, and aspirations. School choice empowers parents as partners in their children's education and ensures that schools remain responsive and accountable to the families they serve. Any governance restructuring that limits school choice or reduces educational options would be fundamentally contrary to our community's beliefs and educational priorities. We look forward to receiving the detailed information necessary to make that decision to protect our community's educational interests, preserves local autonomy, and maintains meaningful school choice for all our families. In conclusion and requests, we maintain our local elementary and middle schools. We preserve Vermont's school choice model, and we publish the full data, criteria, and analysis used to create the map and why SUs are better than SDs or vice versa. We are ready to partner constructively with the committee to find solutions that protect student opportunity, respect family interests, investments, and preserve the social and economic vitality of Waterford, Barnet, and Walden and the surrounding region. Thank you for listening for your careful consideration of these very real impacts these decisions will have on our children and our town. Respectfully submitted, Jason Miller.
Thank you. A couple quick questions, and there may be more. So just to make sure I understand, you operate K through 8, pre-K through 8, is that right? And then high school choice?
Yep. So in our district, we are pre-K through 8 and then school choice for high school. And predominantly, I'd say 95% of our kids go to St. Johnsbury Academy or Linden Institute, but there are some that go to other high schools as well.
Okay. And we're looking to have a map that in the end between the SDs in the gray area and the SUs in the colored that have, we get to like a structure with SUs or SDs of at least 2,500.
Yeah.
And so you're in the Caledonia district that's sort of lightish brown, a little bit lighter brown. Is that, if that were to be the SU in which you replace, does that make sense where you are?
So I think we're interesting because we're in the middle of the SDs versus NSUs, right? Because right now we're part of the Caledonia SU that's there with Danville, Cabot, Peacham, and Danville, but we're also right next to SDs, which is the St. Johnsbury Academy and Kingdom East as well. So part of that is, we see we're in the middle, and what makes the most sense and direction for us as a district to go in.
Okay. All right. So the main thing for you though, and you've already said this, but is that you maintain your ability for high school choice.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, I think I can tell by body language. I think there's a question over here.
Yes, sir. So, thanks, Jason, for the input. I have my impression is that school choice is not getting enough airtime in the House and the Senate. So I'm pleased that you kind of refocused this, at least for a few minutes on this. And my question is really not to you, no offense intended, but to the committee. There was a number bannered about on how many, it's either school districts or towns have choice in the mix. And I'm wondering if somebody can share that.
92 or 3 towns.
92. Okay, thank you.
Maybe so it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So thank you. You are welcome to listen. Okay, you're welcome to stay on and listen. Or if you have other things to do, that's okay too. So, but thank you for coming in. We may want to talk to you again before we're
okay. That sounds great. Feel free to reach out. You have my contact information. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have
Darnell, Rennick,
no.
Rennick, Darnell, Margaret.
Oh, it's Backwards. It's Renell. It says Rennick. So
Rennick, Darnell.
okay, come on up. Oh, you're back. Yeah, okay. So you saw what we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you got. Well, so I'll introduce myself. So I Rennick Darnell Martin. I'm school board chair for Sequoia Valley School District, in Franklin County. And I didn't submit a written testimony. I can submit it afterwards if you like. But yeah, I'm just here to advocate for our particular district and some of their needs. It may be a bit of a new point because I saw the updated map and our superintendent had testified last week about that. And so I'm just here to reiterate the point. The map stays the same way. Currently, the current map has us in the gray area as maintaining a district within that. But I just want to kind of hit some of the same points, and if you have any questions, it'll be pretty short. So the reason that standalone district for us designation works, so we have a proven gals for success. Since we unified with Act 46 back 2019, MBSD is operating a cohesive pre-K through 12 districts, serving about 1,800 students. Population is significant, exceeds several districts currently proposed as standalone SDs, including Hillier, Addison, Northwest, and Fuski. We have highly efficient. So really the point of that is at scale, we've already proven it to be quite successful. Highly efficient operations. We are fiscally already quite responsible as a district. Our long-term weighted ADM is $12,173. All right. So that is well below the statewide average. And I think that kind of serves a lot what we can do with that money for our student services. Superior educational outcomes, despite a low spending district, our student outcomes are among the best in the county, consistently outperforming higher spending neighbors. So we continue to be above the statewide averages. So we really do a lot with that amount of money. I think that's a good indication that that model that we have works. Operational misalignment, CTE could conflict the previously proposed inclusion in SU 11 would decouple MVSD from our current tech center, which is the Northwest Career Tech Center. So the way it is now, we are aligned. We actually send a number of our students already to that tech center. They're already integrated into that system. So maintaining as part of that is quite important to us because we're putting a lot of emphasis on tech and the trades.
Are you fully operating? Are you fully operating district?
What do you mean?
Well,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we have three elementary schools, so Franklin, Swanton, Highgate, and then we have one high school, which is so.
Is the CTE inside your current district?
No, so we send most of our, not all of our CT students to Northwest Tech Center, which is part of Maple Run. So what that's in St.
Is how far?
So that is the one right
Here.
below it. Yeah,
So one right below. Okay.
yeah. So that's Maple Run.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's for us, that's about 15-20 minutes. Yeah, so we actually bus the students to the tech center and that's where they go.
Half day full day?
Depending on the student in their classes, sometimes half day, sometimes full day. We also have a pretty robust ag program at our school. So that's something that we're quite proud of what we're doing there. We're really big on pushing into the trades. So that's why the previous map that had as part of the SU coupled that. So that would have been an issue. Just the structural compatibility with Franklin Northeast and Granite Isle. Again, we don't have anything to do with them currently. And then clear local mandate, our board recently, in the last formal vote, we failed to pass the resolution for being part of an SU. So the majority was for continuing to be part of the district in that one.
What was just kind of get a sense, the SU that was being considered, that got rejected, what kind of geographic?
The vote that we had was, would that general model work. It wasn't anything proposed.
It wasn't like specific boundaries.
No, it was just with that general model work, and we've, as a district, just had quite a bit of success with what we've done. Again, we're able to allocate resources, teachers where they need to go. And again, for the cost of what we're spending, it's been successful. And our initiative, our programs, our statewide average has gone. Again, for what we spend, it's quite high. Yeah, I think there was one of the averages, I think we were about 13th in the state for our high school in terms of. And then just protecting progress. So, staying unified, high performing district, versus going back to this, you would have been regressive steps, that threaten operational effectiveness and local governance stability. So we just advocated for remaining the same and within this particular map specifically. Good. So if there's any questions, again,
You will allow them to drive through, right?
yeah, it depends.
It's okay.
Yeah, so no, the current map as it is,
So do one.
this was the one we used. Okay.
Yes.
So 3 elementary schools, 1 high school. Okay. Any of those 4 schools, any of them kind of out in the periphery as far as like low population, really marginal facilities, any of those kinds of challenges in your district?
No, our small school, Franklin, it meets all the benchmarks for teacher-student ratios. It has actually been named one of the best elementary schools in the state previous years. We're very proud of that school. So that is, I think, a great school. So it doesn't have any risk there.
It changes the dynamics when you're in an area, whether it's a district or an SU, that has those kinds of challenges. That's why I asked. So,
Yeah, no, we have a really good interoperability between the 3 schools. Again, they all funnel to the same high school, by transportation to all of them. So it's been quite effective.
So your high school population,
Don't know off the top.
probably,
just rough, 200.
no, they were.
No.
Okay,
I think it's maybe 900.
okay.
Yeah,
They play against Maui, so it's gonna be about the same.
I think it was, we're also the softball champions statewide, so no,
That's middle and high school together.
middle and high school. And middle and high school, and we have an ag center for our high school. The biggest thing is just what we've been able to do with our per pupil spending, right? So we are considerably lower, but we have effective cost savings in there. Fortunately, we didn't pass the budget, so we're actually out for a revote. We tend to hear concerns about property taxes and all that, so we understand that issue quite well. So, but again, we're affected by the statewide issues as well as anybody.
So they're affiliated with a CTE. One of the models being considered for over a year now is CTE centric SUs or SUs. I'm wondering in your conversations with your board members and your parents and administrators and what have you, if you had talked about the CTE centered model, and if you did, why it's not of more interest as opposed to such a maintained status quo.
Well, I think for us, because we already are doing that through our work through the Northwest Technical Center, right? We're already aligned with them. That's where our kids are going. And so for us, the current model is already integrated into them. So it's making sure that we continue to do that.
I'm just like searching for nuggets of information, which we may not have.
Yeah, it's a great tech center. If anything, it would just the ability to grow that capacity. So we have more students go.
So that actually serves to, now we're just kind of, this isn't as much about you, it's the same thing you're doing, focus of information. Do you have kids, are you able to expose your seventh and eighth graders to CTE?
Yes.
How do you, are they able to?
So a lot of that goes to our ag center, right? So again, we have mechanics welding. That's done through our like FFA program ag, and you know, we're exposing them to them. We also host the a county-wide basically like career development fairs where we have different employers come in, work-based learning programs and stuff. And so we're very minded on giving different opportunities to the students, especially around work-based learning programs, trades, stuff like that. I mean, you know, up there in Franklin County, that's where a lot of students are interested. So we try one.
But what percentage is your teacher's pay or salary expense, I should say?
I feel like I should have had my finance director for that. Are you talking about what percentage
Total,
of salary and benefits of our overall budget?
Yes. Probably like 80%.
Don't quote me, but it's around.
Because I've talked to some other superintendents. It's about 80% cost.
Yes.
And how are your facilities?
Our facilities are, I mean, we've put, so for instance, one of the things that we did with the ESSER funds is we did the majority of it into facilities. Right, because we understood, again, it was one-time money. So we have our facilities committee does a lot of work to improve the grounds. Everything, we have a project that we've been in multi phases of working on to improve facilities. We added an additional classroom and stuff to Franklin, so we use ESSER funds for that, just because of all the requirements. HVAC problems, we have a lot, so we put a lot into the facilities. So we are quite proud of that work because we understand over time you have to have good facilities. So, but yeah, in terms of payment, it's the same thing. I'm sure you've heard it before. Healthcare premium stuff, the things we don't control. That's really hurting us. Losing teachers and staff to higher paid districts.
That was my next question is how is your pay scale? Is it average, low? Obviously it's not high because you just said you're losing.
Some, I mean, I think, again, like I think our district's done a really good job of also the other incentives to be there and be a part of it. And so we have a pretty good retention rate. We're comparable, I guess that's the best way to say it. We're comparable with our neighbors. Probably more of a disconnect with some of the southern districts, especially around Chin. But
So what's do you have a question?
Yes, did you guys complete your PCB testing? Were you on the list?
I would have to go back and check.
Oh, you would have known about it too, if you were on the list, so.
I would have to go back and check.
So I understand that your cost per student right now is roughly, it's below the state average, but your budget was rejected. Can you share with us why your voters rejected your budget?
So I'll caveat with this is just my opinion. I'm not representing my board, in my opinion. I believe that a lot of people view those town meeting votes as their voice to express discontent with overall property taxes and like that. I really think that was some of the sentiment. You know, when messaging comes out that hey, like property taxes are too high, we should change the system. A lot of voters feel that they can't support it, even though it doesn't necessarily correlate to what's in our budget. And then, despite a lot of efforts on our part to communicate to the community that, you know, our local share of the budget is actually decreasing. So our current proposed budget actually lowers our tax rate just slightly. And that's with adding in the CLA and all that stuff. So it's one of those things where there's just, you know, people are struggling and they don't want to see any increases. And so, you know, I think that kind of was part of the issue. I do believe this current budget should hopefully pass. We are lowering it just slightly. But yeah, people are just frustrated.
So do you believe the foundation formula will make your job easier?
I think the devil's in the details, right? Because that, in theory, would be good. It's just how are all the other funds allocated? Again, like there's potential in certain cases, maybe it rises because of what's allocated out of income, because we're already below. I recognize from my own choice, something has to be done. It's just how's it distributed? How does that actually work? That would be like the question that I would defer to our business office to be like, okay, how is that actually going to be distributed? Funds rolled out? I mean, big questions that we have are like facilities. You know, we're able to put a lot of work and money into facilities through our budget, so will funds be available for that? So yeah, those are things that I'd have to get spun up to know how.
Well, ideally, you won't have a budget to pass again.
I mean, exactly, but I think the question is, and this is where I know it's push-pull, right? And we have representatives from other parts of the state who are gonna talk about, you know, we want to be part of this, we want to be part of that, how to make everybody happy. Locally for us, in our district, we've been able to do daily audits, and prioritize the right things. Again, facilities, quality staff. I mean, we don't have much of what we don't need. So I think if everywhere could replicate like that, that would be great, but wants to. So that will be kind of a detail.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate the time.
Like I said before, you're welcome to stick around. Yeah, I have another question for you. So, Karen and Seth, we apologize for the delay, but we were on the floor for a lot longer than we thought we were going to be. So we're running a little behind. So sorry to screw up your day. But yeah, thank you for coming in.
Good sense.
So Carrie, you're up next.
Thank you. Yes, good afternoon, and thank you, Senator Bongartz and senators, for inviting me to speak today about the current Senate map and its implications for Vermont schools. I'd also like to say that I took the opportunity, Senator Bongartz, because you told me in a conversation we had that anytime I had the chance to speak up, I should. So that's why I offered to speak today, for one reason. I'd also like to thank you as the Senate Education Committee for coming to visit our school this past fall and for your conversations with students, teachers, administrators, board members, and community members. I'm a retired educator with 44 years of teaching French and Spanish in Vermont, grades pre-K to 12, and I am currently the board chair for Mountain View's Supervisory District. Throughout my career in Vermont education, I have seen education regularly reinvent itself with new initiatives, consolidations through various acts, and now Act 73, which has thrown the state into upheaval, confusion, distrust, and fear, especially fear. Fear of losing our communities, our local schools, which are regarded as centers of the community, and in many towns there are generational traditions. Distrust that consolidation will bring the financial promises of savings, which have yet to be modeled in any of the maps. Confusion over loss of identities when schools close without any evidence that it will improve education. And upheaval after many of our communities spent years trying to hammer out articles of agreement to consolidate under Act 46, which has shown little financial gains despite the promises. All this is to say that I understand and agree with these serious concerns, having lived through it mainly as an educator. In looking at the Senate map, I'm glad to see that the current school districts and supervisory unions will largely stay intact, instead of what some maps have shown, ripping towns apart and putting them into new districts they have never been part of. In order to be proactive, sorry about that. In order to be proactive, we have in Mountain Views reached out to 2 other districts geographically and educationally aligned with us and with whom we all share a CTC. We had a board meeting of the chairs in Mountain Views, between Mountain Views, Windsor Southeast, and the Hartford School District, and agreed that we had much in common. And if we were told we had to consolidate, we are logical partners. We sent a letter to the redistricting task force and spoke about it at a meeting, and they thanked us for our forward thinking. We know that other districts have similar burgeoning partnerships and voluntary collaborations that should be encouraged and supported. Enacting CESAs, otherwise known as BOCES, as our region has done, is a proven way of forging relationships that are mutually beneficial in terms of operational and technical resource sharing that supports greater access to educational opportunities for all students while actually reducing operating costs. CESAs also support district-to-district relationships that could be foundational for voluntary mergers. As you no doubt know, our 7 communities approved 2 small bonds for necessary repair work in order to keep the high school, middle school open, and we passed a major bond with high margins to build a new school before the current building becomes uninhabitable. We have an approved preliminary plan and a bond now, and we are looking to our next steps in securing state construction aid. The data shows our middle and high school schools are providing high-quality educational opportunities in our region and strong support for the new school bond, even in this difficult economic environment. Shows how
You're frozen. Come back.
Carrie, you're frozen. Can you hear us?
Oh, you're back. Now you're moving again.
Okay, great. Sorry. I don't know what you heard last.
The word difficult environment, I think, even in this difficult environment.
Okay. All right, let me go back to that.
You were a good listener, Senator Baumgart.
Okay, so I'll just pick it up where I think I should be. We have an approved preliminary bond and a plan and a bond, and we are looking to next steps in securing state construction aid. The data shows our middle and high schools and are providing high quality educational opportunities in our region and strong support for the new school board, even in this difficult economic environment. Shows how important it is for our regional towns. We must not lose it. Currently, there are 3 high schools in our CTC region. If our high school failed and can't be rebuilt, our district geography would be too far for students to be bused from the western side of our towns in our district, such as Pittsfield, Killington, and Plymouth. Through Act 46, these communities all chose to stay in our district and are fully integrated educationally and operationally, and it would be harmful to split those families off. We have heard that more students are needed if we want to build a new high school. We say bring them in. However, most schools are locked into districts or supervisory unions through articles of agreement that are difficult to break. We have been in contact with neighboring towns who are interested in joining our district, yet they have no immediate mechanism to move into a different district. We ask that the legislature and the AOE envision a transitional period that facilitates those voluntary shifts. With the 3 supervisory units that have agreed to consider being partners, we could look at our schools over time and consider ways of offering students the option to attend one of the 3 schools, not restrained by where they live. We could begin to diversify curricula and create educational pathways that meet the needs of all students. These are conversations that can be challenging, and they require trust, flexibility, and time. We welcome assistance from the Agency of Education as we build a school that is in line with their vision. In Mountain View's supervisory district, after consolidation with Act 46, we had many such conversations while creating a common curriculum, a common CBA, and many other aspects of what it means to consolidate and unify. Bigger supervisory units will need time, patience, and perseverance to make progress towards a cohesive educational outcome for all students. This is best done among willing partners coming together voluntarily with the shared purpose of providing the best for our students, families, and communities while leveraging such collaborations to drive down operating costs. Thank you for your work, your good intentions, and willingness to hear from the educational community. Sincerely, Carrie Bristow.
Thank you. Just to make sure that the district, I mean, the SU that we had you placed in on the map, is your testimony that that works?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And I remember the testimony from your area, the visit, and then the testimony about how hard you worked in Act 46 to bring things together and get to a common goal.
Yes, it was challenging, and it happened over time, but it did happen, and we are seeing the outcomes educationally and financially.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. And welcome to stay on and listen to Seth.
Thank you.
And Seth, you're up.
Great. Hey, Senators, thank you so much for having us here today. I just want to compliment you. You guys walk the walk. I have seen you take testimony, come to schools. You're really doing a great service by being out there, and we definitely take notice, so thank you. My background, I'm also on the same school board, the Mountain View Supervisory Union, and I'm the chair of the Rebuild Committee. So I'm going to speak from a little bit different lens to complement the message that Carrie gave you, and try not to be repetitive. My background is I've spent 30 years in state and local government, either working directly in leadership roles or advising companies to work with state governments around the country. Most recently in government, I served as town manager of Killington for 6 years and special assistant to the governor of Illinois for 5 years. Thank you. I just want to say, look, I think there's an important reality that you are addressing. There's been declining enrollment and an aging population, which is necessitating some type of change. You know, losing more than 20% of our K through 12 student population, it's really put a burden on the system, and it's reasonable for the legislature to explore consolidation and new governance structures. We really appreciate the work that's gone into these maps, and we really share your goal of trying to build a more sustainable, equitable, and efficient education system. And we actually believe that we're well positioned to help you accomplish the goals you've set out. At the same time, we really urge the committee to focus on what the evidence demonstrates will produce meaningful cost savings and build strong regional schools, which are really the backbone of consolidation. So what are the details? First, I think the task force that you appointed really made a critical finding that large-scale consolidation on its own has not been shown to lower cost, improve outcomes, or increase equity. But they did identify a promising path, which is regional collaboration and shared service models, like the one that we've created. We created the first BOCE model called Vermont Learning Collaborative, which allows our district and neighboring districts to share high-cost services like special ed, transportation, staffing, achieving economies of scale without full consolidation. So I think that there's also some cost savings that can be derived through the staffing that you guys are rightly clued in on. And so I really think emphasizing in your final maps the benefit of these BOCES is smart. I think the approach has to more directly address some of the major cost drivers in our education system. You know, healthcare, special education, facilities, and transportation. BOCES help do that. But, you know, we just went through a budget cycle, and our budget actually provides a helpful illustration. Despite facing significant increases in things like health insurance, labor, supplies, and more, we were able to hold our increase to 1.7 million over last year, which is about a 5% increase. And the equalized tax rate was around 3% increase. But due to the variables outside of the school's control, that translated to a 3 to 17% tax increase in our 7 towns, right? So we're keeping with anything that we can control, we're keeping costs down. But then there's a bunch of things that we don't have control of, like wages and benefits. You know, healthcare, these are representing about 80% of our budget, and health insurance alone was up 7.4%. You know this as well as anybody, but healthcare is really rising much faster than ed spending. 110% increase from 2018 to 2025, and 135% increase from 18 to 26. You know, before 2018, less than 10% of school budgets were focused on healthcare, but now it's 12 to 15% and rising towards 20%. If we don't address that driver in this change in government, it's an action, it's not gonna deliver the benefits that we all want to see happen to the state. The other thing, in our budget, supplies and equipment were up about 16% due to tariffs and inflation. And then, you know, around utilities or unforeseen facility repairs, those things were increasing too, including, like Carrie mentioned, our 1958 boiler quit and sewage pipe failed. The other thing that's driving costs right now for schools that nobody's talking about, and I feel like we are, but it's this penalty on this 2x penalty that's been issued ever since 2024 on capital expenses, on debt. I don't, you know, we're paying a penalty this year just to replace our boiler and fix our sewer pipes and deal with things that'll keep our schools safe and operational, and hopefully energy efficient. You know, I think that's been a challenge. So I think the point here is there's some major cost drivers that aren't being talked about as much, and these maps are a good start, and I know it enables the foundation formula, but I think those have to be more of a focus. How can we be a partner? We really think that the maps should support strong, you know, can support an educational reform, should support the regional hub. We're ready to be a partner in regional solutions. In addition to forming that first regional education cooperative, we've demonstrated our commitment to being a regional hub. Carrie mentioned some of the outreach to neighboring schools and how we can collaborate. But then on March 3rd, our district voters from 7 towns approved an approximately $112 million bond to rebuild our middle and high school. They authorized about 75% through the bond vote, and then we've raised another $5 million already locally. So we have $89 million on the table to build a regional hub. We need to raise the rest of that money, that 20%. We're hoping that the school construction will come through, and we need that penalty to go away on capital debt, so it makes this thing possible. But, you know, essentially, that financial commitment plus our history serving 28 communities in total, we have 7 towns, and we've had up to 21 sending communities through school choice. You know, our ability to maintain strong academic outcomes, offer diverse programming, being a leader in innovation, you know, coupled with our state-approved rebuild plan, which is designed, by the way, we designed this thing to accommodate thinking about what you're doing. We design the plan thinking about what you're doing. We can accommodate our current population, plus have room for growth with what's authorized, the current plan. But within the permit, we can easily expand from 600 students to 750 or 1,000 if you want us to build and be a larger regional hub. That is a change that could be upgraded, that could be managed, that's contemplated in the design. We have the ability to grow and to accept more students if that's something you would like us to do. But to move forward, we have to, we're hopeful that the legislature will uphold its commitment it made through Act 73 to fund the school construction plan and take action to remove the capital debt penalty, which was snuck into the 2024 yield bill at the last minute. These actions are not just for our district, but for every district across the state. They will help ensure that school districts can be safe and energy efficient. I don't think, as you know, the state stopped funding state construction in 2027. Vermont has accumulated more than $6 billion in unmet school construction needs. As a result, many of our facilities are the oldest and least adequate in our country. Ours is currently ranked the worst, according to the state. This is a statewide issue that affects safety, educational quality, and long-term costs, and has to, and I think we're ahead of the game. There's not like a facilities plan to go along with these maps, but we're stepping up and saying, hey, here's a facilities plan that can support consolidation in larger districts that we have already funded 80% of. I understand that the governor and the legislature have identified potential funding sources, like adjustments to second homeowner taxation, an estate tax, or even a targeted wealth tax. And we urge you to act on those. We think that, from our experience, delaying any investment is only going to increase costs over time. And I know that education reform is being driven primarily by in many parts by cost reduction. Equally important is eliminating that debt penalty. Right now, as it stands, since the state does not fund school construction and it penalizes communities that step up to fund capital debt to ensure their facility is safe and energy efficient, that's essentially making taking care of your schools an untenable option. It's holding communities somewhat hostage in terms of holding the facilities they have. And just to wrap up, I thank you again for having me here today, for considering this point of view. We support your efforts. The map, as Carrie said, we will work with, and we want to be your partner. And we encourage you to keep focusing on the things that are driving costs for Vermonters. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you. Questions? No. Just so you know, I think there's a lot of sympathy around the notion of exempting funded indebtedness from the excess spending threshold. So I think there's people understand that issue. I'm not sure where it's going. We're not on the money committees, but I think that issue has gained some attention. The other one is that there is a bill in the House that would deal, at least in part, with the healthcare costs. I'm not sure where that's going either. That's the one that would sort of change the way that the bargaining works at the time. So not sure where that is. I will also say that the legislature and the administration together, between the care board and the legislature, has taken a significant amount of cost out of the hospital system in Vermont the last couple of years. Not enough to probably make a palpable difference for the issues you're raising, but there is work going on. So, but your points are all well taken. We understand them and have internalized them. So, thank you both for coming, We remember our visit very well. And enjoyed it. So thanks.
One of my favorite parts, Senator, was one of you was asking, well, where are you from, to a student? And she said, Rutland. And one of your colleagues said, you came from my district over the pass? That's amazing. And she was like, well, yeah, it's a great school. So anyway.
Says a lot for school choice.
Yes.
And I remember one
And
guy,
our ability to be your partner as a regional hub.
you were one of the only schools I've ever heard say that Act 46 actually helped you. I've heard a lot of negative on Act 46, but
Took a lot of work. I know. I
Yeah.
also heard that.
Right.
So, but yes, in the end, because the testimony was that in the end, it was worth the work.
Right.
Because you came together. So, thank you for that. So, all right. Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
both of you. Thanks. Okay, that's it for today. And just to give people a preview, I think we're probably likely not to meet at all on Friday afternoon. Which my guess is there will be a lot of interest.
Do you,
Just because
the floor?
parts of the floor, and I actually have to be on or something, and then we're not gonna have much time anyway, and people tend to want to be out here. So I figured rather than meet for 45 minutes or something, yes, so we
just curious if you have developed a strategy towards this conversation on 206 that came off the floor. Our two go.
Oh, yes, we're still live, but I guess it's legitimate for us to be talking about this. I have an amendment that I may still want to tweak a little bit, that I want to take to the committee tomorrow, that allows somebody to open a home center with just the level 1 certification. And then with some number of years, yet to be fully determined, but some number of years to get to the level 2, but a long ramp up. So that rather than have to have everything before you can open one, when in my view, it's maybe not going to happen. Make it easy to get started and then give time. And that's nice. So, yes.
I just sent you an email with the data that I was talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
so, and, I've had a lot of home daycare centers that closed. And one of them, who has a master's degree in early childhood education, that said, if I go from a home to a center, which is what she was gonna have to do, she got married. That I'm gonna have to, I can only pick up 2 more children, but I gotta go through all the expense of putting in a sprinkler system, and she said, I'm gonna probably close and go to work for school. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was talking
That's
about.
what we're all, that's what the fear is. Yeah.
And we've lost a lot of home, daycare. Because they've increased the requirements.
Well, fire safety is always
Oh, yeah.
something.
Yeah, but
We know, like,
there's realistic.
Yeah, but going from a home to
Well-
a center when she was living there, she didn't need.
right, but we have tried to talk about fire safety in the committees of jurisdiction, and there's really very little we can do to control fire safety matters. Like, I'm just remaining really sympathetic, but we would be in very big trouble if we relaxed fire safety regulations on childcare.
That's a side issue.
Okay,
Yes, I saw a couple of hands.
So related to S 206, just curious, if I picked up a couple of items, I'm not sure they're correct or incorrect. Public pre-K system is exempt. Did the Bill's sponsor or reporter say that?
do you mean after school?
No, I caught that
Okay.
one. No, this is public pre-K.
I think she meant that that's under a different system.
Yeah, like after school.
Public school. Oh, but childcare is in. Private childcare is part of this
Yes.
I think,
scenario.
I could look about if the language is public school, but it probably says that anyone regulated that receives is like the therapeutic schools, anyone that is regulated by the Board of Education probably just doesn't have to fall under this because they do have their own regulations, not just public schools, but anyone who receives public dollars.
Anyone who receives public dollars.
I believe, yeah. I mean, they receive public dollars for the provision of K through 12 education.
Okay, I just wanted to see if I
Yeah.
caught that right. Just, okay, thank you. Oh, I guess. Committee of jurisdiction. So again, I know some of you guys have much more experience in this, and I'm not gonna, this is not a hill to die on. I am just curious on whether education belongs, childcare education belongs in health and welfare or belongs in education. Everything I heard, and I'm sitting in health and welfare for 2 years. We had this conversation. It always ended up that that was the right place. Although we were really talking about education. We were talking about education. We were trying to take the perspective of birth to career, that chunk of time. And we could never find like this line where it should go from one committee to the other. And I'm just curious, here we are, like right in the middle of this conversation. And just the whole scenario on the floor just kind of like struck me a little odd that it's all about education, but it was in a different committee. All the issues came out during that floor session. I mean, literally. Yeah, and we could have talked to him for another hour. All right, sorry.
I wish we had like a week for a drive by.
Right.
But.
And why did they offer that to you?
I don't know. The territories we had, it came committee territory, and it kind of came out of nowhere for me. But
I mean, it also was the committee that received the bill. Government operations does licensure. It says licensure everywhere in the bill. I remember the debates on where to house early childhood education. I felt then we should put it in human services, and I think
that is that
it's
like
working really well now.
our ag bill went from here to A&R because it had a little bit of stuff in it about solar, and they ended up ripping it out. And it's like, well, that bill originated here, and then you affected it. So, and as we saw, some bills went through 3 different committees. If it has money in that, it has the word education on it, it should at least get a drive-by. And that's courtesy. That's not trying to, when one chair talks the other, we're sending it by for a drive-by. Here's my opinion. If you have an issue with that, let's sit down and talk.
So I can't speak to whether or not the courtesy was extended of a heads up and what happened there. That is different than automatic jurisdictional possession.
Don't need it, but it had education in it.
Either or would solve.
yeah, I'm not being,
Right.
sometimes things get hectic and things don't happen,
Yeah,
should happen.
yeah.
So I don't want to be critical, but I didn't know what was coming.
Right. But it's like it's an unspoken courtesy and an unspoken kind of like, if you are a certain chair of a committee and you ask to have possession, then it becomes a conversation with the pro tem and the other powers that be, committee on committees.
Of course, they'll have the right to cross over to make it eat.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say there's like a rule that was broken.
But I think the point, I think it's a legitimate discussion.
Yeah.
It's legitimate.
Common courtesy and respect to each committee.
And we have had testimony in early childhood education in here.
Yeah.
I feel well versed in it, and I feel like it's working without coming under AOE.
Well, that's a whole conversation. I mean, that's a
It-
conversation that should be
It
had.
actually is a
Okay.
conversation.
Not to disagree or disagree.
Yeah.
We're neither here nor there.
Right.
Okay. I think we can go off. Daphne,